Good morning. This is the Blainsville webcast that can found each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also listen in on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, get more information about past shows and this show as well at my website behind me, which is blainsworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. Each week we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce Gene Holmes, founder and president of All Systems Go Consulting, for being my guest today. And Gene, you can feel free to wave to all your friends and friends who are watching this. And that is Gene Holmes. Gene Holmes is a nonprofit consultant with over how many? I didn't get the number. How many years of experience?
A little over 20.
Okay, well, over 20 years of experience. So again, you started when you were seven, was it?
Exactly.
Okay. Youngest person
Yeah.
I've ever had on the show. Helping small organizations in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and beyond that build sustainable fundraising systems, run smarter events, and communicate their impact. And I like what you said there. I think that's the key. You want it to be sustainable, not just a
hmm
operation. Since 2023, she's been bringing all AI workshops into the mix, showing nonprofits and small businesses how to use emerging technology to save time, tell a story, and stay alive. Very cool. And Gene, so the first question I always ask when I have somebody on the first
hmm
time is, as a kid, you grew up where?
I grew up in Bucks County and Medford, New Jersey, and a little bit in California too.
And so when you were growing up as a kid in Bucks County, Medford, California, you always know you want to be in the field, fundraising field.
I had no idea. None whatsoever.
What did you want to be as a kid?
When I was a little kid, I wanted to be an Olympic athlete. And then at some point I changed. I wanted to be a chemist for some reason. And then I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. And then eventually I settled on rock star. And that is when I kind of met you when I wound up at Bucks County Community College to study music there.
Oh, I didn't realize that you were a music major then.
Yeah.
Have you pursued the music?
No, I that was a wonderful time. I'm so glad I did it. It was a midlife, I guess you could say a midlife crisis, but I had been living in California and working in the internet industry. I worked for Net Zero, an internet provider, way back in the day when every all of that was really new, and it was super exciting and a lot of fun. But my cup wasn't full at the end of the night, and I wanted to go back to school for something that I could get really excited about. So I was a pretty good musician when I was a kid, and I decided I wanted to be closer to family and I would give it a shot. So that's how I wound up at the community college and met you.
As a music major. And by the way,
Correct.
I'm sorry you said that you're not active in it now, but you can always come back to it, in your next life. But that's funny. You mentioned Net Zero. Are they still around?
I think they are. Yeah. I
Okay.
think their shtick back then was that they wanted to provide internet for free. So they
Okay,
were like
that was
defenders
it.
of the free world was their tagline.
Okay, now
But
I
now I think
remember.
they're paid and they went broadband and all that.
Okay, but yeah, now I remember the free option. So I met you then, Gene, at Bucks County Community College, and you were at the time in the development office. Is that correct?
Yeah. And that was kind of serendipitous. Yeah.
Okay, and that's you did what in the development office?
So that was a part-time job that I just found while I was going to school there. And yeah, I interviewed for a part-time position doing database administration and data entry and all sorts of little things. And was there doing that for I did that for a few years and then went on to other jobs in the foundation. And yeah, it was that was I always like to tell people this story because and I hope you don't mind me going
No,
back a
please.
little bit,
Yeah.
but I love this story because I think in during my lifetime I'd always kind of felt like I had a heart for service and I didn't really know what to do with it. So I didn't come from a family that was philanthropic or even volunteered. So not that they were good people, solid, hardworking, but that just wasn't part of our lives. So when I finally got to the community college and I kind of fell into this part-time job in the foundation, it was like this whole world kind of opened up to me, the whole third sector, and I met all these amazing people who were, basically dedicating their careers to helping other people, and not just at the college, but across the county on all these agencies that they basically are the glue that holds everything together, and that really inspired me. And when I realized I wasn't going to be a rock star, it was a really easy transition to make into that world.
So you then were at Bucks County Community College, and you were there, you said, for a few years. How many years were you at Bucks?
I was there for 13 years.
Well, not for a few years, 13 years?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
were you full-time at Bucks?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Eventually. Okay, and all 13 years in the development office?
Yep. The whole time.
Okay. And we'll give a shout out since you mentioned it. So you worked at the time with what, Toby Bruin?
I did work with Toby Bruin, and we had a blast working in the foundation there together.
Who was the best? Were you there also when Pete Dominic was there?
I was. Pete hired me.
Okay, well,
and yeah, I was there with him for I don't know, about a year and a half.
Okay, so we'll make sure Pete gets a hold of this.
Yeah.
But he and I just spoke recently. Good guy, and Toby is as well. So
Yeah.
15 years in development office. What then gave you the impetus, or what you changed to get out of the college?
The college was an amazing experience. I love that place so much, and it changed my life in so many ways. But at some point, I had done every job that there was to do in the foundation except executive director, and I never had a desire. Once I saw what that job looked like up close,
Right.
I really didn't want it. But I did want to stay in development. So I started looking casually, and I found a position that sounded really challenging and different at a really super interesting organization, the Hepatitis B Foundation, its Research Institute, the Blumberg Institute, and the Pennsylvania Biotechnology Center. They're three co-located organizations in Doylestown, all founded by the same people, all co-managed by the same people. It's a fascinating place. So I took a job. I was vice president of institutional advancement there, and I was there for about 5 years. And I kind of always had this itch to have my own business, to work for myself. And that was about when I started thinking about that a little bit more seriously. And I could see what it could look like. I could see my value in the community after I gained all this valuable experience, and I could see where I could help a lot of small nonprofits. So that's really why I did it, is not because I wanted to leave any organization, but because I just really felt like I could provide more value to my community by doing this kind of fractional fundraising roles.
And that's a pretty gutsy move then on your part. So you'd had 18 years with nonprofits and solid nonprofits, and all of a sudden then to start your own company.
Mm-hmm.
When did you start that?
In about the summer of 2023, maybe actually a little bit earlier. Yeah, I think it was about then. And it was scary. It's always scary taking a risk like that. I have a spouse who has a good full-time job in health insurance. If I didn't have that, I don't know whether I would have done it or not, which is sad, I think. But that's the world we live in, where we have to have health insurance.
And when you did that, we were still right in the middle of COVID, wasn't it?
That was 2023, so we were coming out of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had this idea to start your own business. What was the business you started? What was
So the business is called All Systems Go Consulting. And the idea behind the name is that I love systems. I love, and that's one of the things that I really gained from my time in technology. At Net Zero, I learned a lot about databases. I learned about how systems work. I helped build some proprietary systems there. Worked directly with software engineers, and kind of was the liaison between software engineers and salespeople. So you learn a lot about systems in that kind of role. And so when I started this company, I really thought that's where I could provide a ton of value. I'm also a people person, and I love development. I love meeting people, and I love individual giving programs. So it really kind of wraps all that up. I love where you get that intersection of systems and development and just making things work.
So, Gene, you mentioned just before something called fractional
Mm-hmm.
support. And what exactly is fractional support?
Fractional support is a really interesting kind of newer concept that's kind of blowing up right now. Um, but it's basically, I think for nonprofits, it's great because it's a way for nonprofits to get senior expertise without paying for a full-time staffer. So, an organization can bring me on as a fractional director of development, or they can bring me on just for a project. One of my clients right now is they're celebrating a huge milestone. So I'm managing their milestone year and their gala, which they don't normally do. Another one of my clients is they like to outsource a lot of things so that they can stay lean. So they outsource their development and they outsource a lot of other operations. So I come in and I'm doing an audit of like all of their fundraising systems that includes like the tech stack and all of their data and all of the systems that they have in place to get donations. So eventually I will also help them. Once I do that audit, I will also help them to just monthly keep that program going.
And kind of an exciting concept, even as you're describing it. It's like you said, a lot of people, organizations don't have the wherewithal or the finances, whatever, to hire a full-time development director. And
Right.
that's a really cool concept that you can come in and do some of the same kinds of things that the full-time person would do, but not on a full-time basis.
Right. Yeah. That way it stays within their budget. It keeps them from burning out. And it really it helps a lot in either times of transition. You're in between hires, or you're in a growth phase. You're a small nonprofit, and all of a sudden, wow, we really need to grow our development campaigns and our development operations before they're ready to actually hire someone. Or maybe I'm helping them to get to the place where they're ready to hire someone.
And to hire yourself out of a job,
Yeah.
in essence. I can also see, Eugene, and I know you used to work in this area as well, that Bucks, we always used to have special projects or special activities. So
Yeah.
again, Bucks had a full-time development office and whatnot, but if a company doesn't have that full-time office, but just wants to have this one event or the one special thing, they could hire you and you could help them get it off the ground.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and that's I think one of the beautiful things about fractional work is, whatever the need is, whatever the budget is, I can hop in and help. That might be a 2-week project, it might be a 2-year project.
How about even something you just mentioned, and I could see it as a problem with people involved in fundraising, that they don't know how much their budget they need or what to put into fundraising, and not realizing until too late that, hey, you do have to pay people to help you raise funds. It used to
Yeah.
be 100 years ago, it's all volunteer and people
Yeah.
just come work, help us raise money. But you have to actually budget for this or you have to plan on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that one of the most common misperceptions about nonprofits and fundraising is that it just happens. It's easy. you
Yeah.
know, we'll find some really rich people that believe in us, and that'll take care of itself. It's a lot of work and it's persistent. It's not like when it is a business just like the for-profit world. So you have to run it like a business, but unlike a business that creates widgets, I don't have widgets that I'm selling that, it's kind of like almost like passive income. You have to keep working for every dollar that you fundraise for. And especially in these times where there's so much uncertainty around future funding right now. I think it's in the best interests of nonprofits to really take a serious look at diversifying their fundraising efforts. Don't be reliant on government grants or any kind, and you don't want to be too reliant on any funding source because individuals tend to be much more loyal to organizations than any local or federal government or even corporations for that matter.
Do you also help nonprofits get members for their boards as well? In other words, they're creating a board. Is that something you can help somebody with?
I think in the process of development, that naturally happens, because I think that if nonprofits are doing development right, that should point to some really great board candidates. I don't have a portfolio of board candidates at the ready, because I think that's another misconception that that folks have about nonprofits. Is that you can interchange pieces. The best way to be involved with a nonprofit, whether you're a staff person or a volunteer, is to be really passionate about that cause. So really what you're looking for when you're looking for board members who, most of the time, not always, but most of the time, should be one of your biggest funding sources. They should be passionate about your cause. So you're really looking for, kind of your tribe, right? You're looking for the people that are most passionate, and those are very often going to come from your existing supporters. So there, you might have, most of the nonprofits out there probably have dozens and dozens of great board candidates in their giving database that they just haven't thought about.
And I think one of the things you help people with, and you're probably very good at this, is also the idea of telling the story of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to get that story out there, especially to people who aren't as familiar with the story as they should be. And that segues, Gene, something I wanted to speak to you about. And it's how you caught my attention on LinkedIn. I saw you doing some presentations now, especially, and it's kind of cool, I think you're becoming well known as kind of an AI expert or guru, or call it what you want. But talk about the role of AI in the development process or the fundraising process.
Yeah. So 2023, when I was starting this company, was right around ChatGPT had come out. It had been out for, I think, about 6 months or so, but it wasn't really well known yet. It wasn't ubiquitous like it is today. And when I heard about it, I didn't think too much about it until I was starting my own business, and I was sitting on my butt looking for some things to do in between, getting my first clients. And so I started playing around with ChatGPT, and I was immediately just enthralled and fascinated. So I just dove into this world, and having a tech background again did help. Because I do understand how databases work. And I think, today a lot of people are, they have a lot of hesitancies about AI. And I can't promise you, I can't tell you that it's not going to go somewhere bad, but the AI that we use today, it's not intelligence. It's basically just a supercomputer.
That's a
The
good
way,
point, right?
yeah, I mean, it's really, it's a prediction machine. The way, to get a little bit nerdy here, the way ChatGPT works is, you ask it a question. You might say, I might ask it because, like I said, my ChatGPT knows me. ChatGPT, tell me something about myself that I can share with Blaine. And it will give me a couple sentences or a paragraph, and every single word that it spits out, it is predicting the likelihood of that next word. It's just a giant prediction machine.
Well,
That's all it is.
explain, Gene, what you just said, because it really blows me away that it actually kind of gets to know you, and I know some of my friends actually give it a name, that
Yeah.
they call it their friend chat. But you put stuff in there, and then you look a day later, 5 days later, it somehow remembers everything you put in there
Yeah.
and builds upon you. And it's just incredible what people can use it for, if they are, I guess, smart about it, and that's, I guess, kind of, again, where you come into play. So when you speak at convention, or you speak at meetings and area get-togethers, what are you talking about when you're
Well,
talking
you
about?
bring up a really good point. And what I always tell, especially nonprofit leaders, is you better get an AI policy in place, because your employees are already using Chat GPT or some AI platform, whether you know it or not.
Right.
So, you know, just about everybody is at least playing around with it at this point. And, you really need to have guardrails in place, right? So one of the things that I stress in all of the workshops and seminars that I do is ethics, and especially in the nonprofit world. What is our number one asset is trust. People give to your organization because they trust you. So if they found out that you were taking your database of um, donations and looking to see if they could get some insights about who to knock on their door for the next big gift, that could be extremely problematic. When you put information into a platform like ChatGPT, and there's a lot of them out there. I in all transparency, that's pretty much the only platform I use. But when you put information into ChatGPT or one of these platforms, it's kind of a black hole. Even the developers that created that database, they couldn't tell you how the decisions are made. So that where and when that information might be used. So yes, be very judicious in how and when you put information into any platform like this.
Talking about it, Gene, it makes me realize, since we mentioned Bucks County Community College, in some respects, I'm no longer teaching on a college level because you probably have seen the same statistics I have, that 90% of papers are being written by ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it says you have to be, again, aware of this and on top of things, because if you're doing the same old, you're making a mistake. It's just, and
Yeah.
so what I think it's going to happen, at least on the college level, is people going to go back to writing in-class essays. Remember, you used to
Yeah.
write every
The
essay,
black and white composition notebooks.
right, and you can't be using this. But I got to believe that would be happening because,
Well,
yeah,
I would argue with that a little bit,
well,
because I think that the future of education, you can't get away from AI, right?
right,
It's everywhere now, and it's going to be everywhere forever now. You have to teach how to use the tools the right way.
point well
And I
taken.
think that, I think what a lot of people worry about is critical thinking going away. And I would argue if we do things the right way, critical thinking will become more important than ever, because what happens is when you use a platform, a generative AI platform, you have to ask the right questions, right? It's all about asking the right questions and refining and continuing to dig. So, like, one of the workshops that I do is on prompt engineering. And there are actual jobs out there called prompt engineering, all sorts of prompt engineering jobs that you can have. If you know how to ask the right questions, and wouldn't you say that this has always been true? Asking the right questions is incredibly important. you know so if I ask, tell me about Gene, well, it could give me any kind of information. But if I ask, if I the chat the, give ChatGPT a role, if I give it some parameters, if I give it context, if I maybe give it some there are documents that can back up or give more context, then it's going to continually use that information to give a better answer. In fact, and I don't know how true this would be today, but I remember when I first started giving these workshops back in 2023, I did a test the week before my first workshop, and I asked ChatGPT to do it wasn't a terribly complex mathematical problem, but certainly wasn't something that I could figure out in my head. So I asked it this problem, and it gave me the wrong answer. I asked it again and told it that I was a mathematician,
Interesting.
and it gave the right answer.
Well, you raise a really good point there, Gene, and it's kind of has to remind me too, to just because you get information doesn't mean it. And ChatGPT even puts it down at the bottom,
Mm-hmm.
this is not, everything. So it points out the need that even if you get information, you need to check it out.
Right. It will hallucinate. That is the technical term that we use for these platforms giving. So an AI platform, a generative AI platform, it it's like this kid that's really this really eager intern that really wants to give you all the answers, right? Even if it doesn't know the right answer, if you so one of the examples I gave in one of my workshops was I gave a prompt to asking it to tell me about the purple elephants of Alaska. Now, we all know that there are no purple elephants in Alaska, but it gave me this incredible description. And I asked it for an image too, and it gave me a really incredible image. And it was even going into the lore and mythology of the purple elephants of Alaska. So, yeah, I mean, you have to make sure that you are verifying. And that's another thing that you can do when you're prompting is you can ask it to provide references.
Give an example, Gene, if you would then, of how a fundraiser, for example, and somebody you've worked with could use AI. So we're not going to ask research purple elephants.
Right.
What could you ask AI, for example, do to both save you time and make your life easier?
Yeah. So one of the tools that I really love right now, there's two tools in ChatGPT. You can create your own custom GPTs and you can create projects. So projects are more kind of discrete, kind of time bound things. And the custom GPT. So, for instance, I have a custom GPT for All Systems Go, my consulting company. And when I create this GPT, I give it very explicit instructions on what the purpose of this GPT is. I gave it documents that include like my company's mission and vision. I gave it examples of work that I've done. And I gave it very strict parameters on what it can and cannot output for me. So that GPT I use when I'm creating marketing materials or I'm brainstorming new things that I could offer. And as you mentioned, it knows me now. It kind of knows my sense of humor even, because I think that's really important for me personally is I like my personality to come through because I am kind of a funny person. And so those things kind of come alive when I use that custom GPT versus using, I think in the general platform, it chooses what and what not to remember about you. But in this custom GPT, so, you could set up a custom GPT in your nonprofit for a team, maybe your communications team, communications and marketing, set up this custom GPT. You give it all this information, maybe your last 5 annual reports and impact statements and program reports. And now it has all this data, and now I can use it for creating a flyer, creating social media for the next 6 months. I can summarize a 10-page program report into 5 bullet points for the board at the next board meeting. I could summarize, presentations or research documents that I get from elsewhere. So
It's amazing, Gene.
Incredible time saving.
But it's also just incredible what it does. Because sometimes I'll be asked by ChatGPT, what does my cat think, or what would I want? What would my cat say in such a situation? Or sometimes I'll put something on Facebook as if my cat was talking. So then I'll say, "Would you like what Kismet would say?" But it's just it's out there. That it's out. You just have to get familiar with it. And let's go back to then, Gene, in terms of how does somebody jump into it? In other words, so you're speaking to a fundraising organization. They're new to ChatGPT. What's the best way to get involved right away? Or I guess they can hire you folks to help them teach them as well.
Well, I think it's important for leadership, especially, to understand what the capabilities are and what the language is so that they know what they're talking about when they do the next step, which is create a policy. So I think it's really important for folks, I would say at home, go and just jump in and start playing around with it, do some searching on prompt engineering and learn what goes into really good prompts. Go and search on what are some problematic things that can happen. What things should we absolutely not do? That's something that you can talk to me about. I offer workshops in basic literacy, advanced prompt engineering, creating policies, creating custom GPTs and projects, and even brainstorming strategy. Kind of that next level, bold innovation thinking.
And you mentioned the term prompt engineering. For the benefit of those who don't know what that is, what exactly is it?
Sorry. Yeah. So prompt engineering is, like when you go into a search engine like Google, you're giving it a prompt. You're saying, look for light bulbs near me, and you'll get your search results. So obviously these AI platforms are different in that they're not giving just search results. They're putting information together for you. But a prompt is basically, it could be a sentence, it could be 10 pages of text that is so extremely specific that you're going to get an extremely specific answer. So prompt engineering is an art of its own form. In fact, there are now jobs in tech now called HITL, human in the loop,
Right.
human in the loop jobs, so that they make sure that there are people who are checking all of the AI output produce.
When I started with AI, I was also surprised to learn that back to the prompts, there are certain things you don't have to put in or not even good to put in. So, for example, I just thought it would be nice, Gene, to say, please, just please give me the, you know, uh, but I was told that you don't have to put the word please in. Is that correct?
No, I still do, because if the AI overlords ever take over, I want them to think kindly about me.
Well, it's funny you said that because I was taught not to put the word please, yet when they give me a response, I'll oftentimes see the word please or thank you, or they're very polite to me in their response,
Well, you know what, Blaine? That's actually, you talk about things that are problematic.
right?
I talked about this overeager intern. It really wants to please you. It
Yeah.
really it's and there are studies now that show that these platforms are very flattering. They want to
They
please you.
are, yeah. No, but it always says, and they compliment me too, everything. That's a good idea, or what a great concept.
I
Um,
know someone who's using it for therapy. No,
well,
I wouldn't go and recommend that, but yeah, it's pretty amazing.
I think for a fundraising organization, again, I wish we had it 20, 30 years ago when I was involved in Bucks and other places. But it'd be a great way to also help write a mission statement, right? Could you ask them to help you write your mission statement?
I like I like these kind of platforms for brainstorming.
Right?
Yeah, definitely. And I definitely have used that for myself, for my company. And in some cases, I have used it to brainstorm messaging for some of my clients. Yes, absolutely. You still always want that HITL, the human in the loop, right? Because as much as this ChatGPT gets to know me, it is not a real person, and it doesn't have morals or ethics.
Point well taken. Go to then back to All Systems Go Consulting. So, why would somebody hire you? Tell me about some of the things you do for an organization.
Well, like I said, I can help fill gaps in either times of transition or times of growth, or if you, like I said, are an organization that just prefers to outsource some functions. I can provide senior level expertise in development and fundraising that you probably could not hire full time on a smaller budget. So I get hired to do very small projects like create a monthly giving program. I get hired to do very large projects that are, years long, where I'm both auditing the systems and I'm supporting their development efforts over the course of the year. So it can span a lot of different things. It could just be an AI workshop.
Okay. Again, I know you giving those workshops, quite often that's where I saw you come on board.
Mm-hmm.
The What do you see as the biggest challenge, Gene, for fundraisers, say in the upcoming year or years?
I think I think fundraisers need to actually take take advantage of this opportunity. I think every difficult time, every challenge presents opportunities, right? And I think we saw this during COVID. Was Americans are very generous to each other when they see their neighbors suffering. People were extremely generous during COVID, and with the funding uncertainty that is happening now and is likely to continue for a while, I think that fundraisers really need to not, instead of pausing, it's I would double down and really push forward and try to diversify your funding sources and really spend more time. And this is kind of one of the reasons why I love AI, is because it frees you up from all the monotony so that you can go out and have these relationships and have good conversations with people who are supporting your organizations, and really make yourself stronger now.
One of the things I'm thinking out loud with you is that it can help you also in terms of preparing for discussions you're going to have with people. In other words, I've seen it used that if you're going to have a meeting with somebody, suggest some of the questions I may be asked or I may ask
Mm-hmm.
that person that you don't, it's almost like a brainstorming tool, I think,
Right. And just the opposite too. You could say, suggest some of the things that uh, might come up as obstacles.
because it used to be like you and I used to with Toby all the time, would brainstorm about stuff. But now
Mm-hmm.
you have an additional source to do your brainstorming with you that he or she or the ChatGPT can help you come up with some of these things you might be asked, or even better, I guess, Gene, too, from a fundraising standpoint, um, it can help you dealing with the objections you're going to face, or why would people not want to give? That'd be an interesting question. Why would people not want to give to our organization?
Mm-hmm.
And how can we turn that around?
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but it's like fascinating. All the time I'm coming up with different things I'm wondering about, that I never knew there was an answer for. But at least I could get, if not an answer, an opinion. It's kind of an opinion I'll get from some
Yeah.
of the source. It's just kind of cool.
I actually feel like since I've been working with ChatGPT, I've been more creative.
Yeah. Well, it's when you said that, I sort of feel the same thing too, because I want to know a lot more about a lot of stuff that I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know how to get an answer for. And so
Yeah.
you raise a rhetorical question. But it almost reminds me, Gene, when the internet first started becoming popular, it was the same kind of thing. I could get answers to stuff. I'd always worry about it. Here's one other, has nothing to do with fundraising, but my wife has done this and put in symptoms that you have, and it'll give an opinion of what it means. Or even more significantly, drug interactions. Take
Mm-hmm.
10 drugs and you're taking them or five drugs, and it'll give you something to consider or think about. Just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Almost, Gene, what you're saying, be creative as to ways you could use it, you know, and,
Yes.
and that's kind of
I
cool.
think that's in the last 5, 6 months, the thing that's really opened my eyes, because I was really laser focused in the beginning on how can it help me,
Right.
with these very specific things. But I've really discovered so many really fascinating ways that I could use it. I would say, talk to your doctor
Right.
about your drug interactions. I think a good idea there is come up with a list of questions for your doctor.
It's not a great idea, but
Yeah.
very interesting. And even it can help you, I guess, develop strategies as to even a letter. For example, you could ask it to draft a letter, a fundraising letter, because
Mm-hmm.
you used to I'm sure I used to it at
Oh yeah,
home. And no offense to
thousands
me,
of them.
but yeah, but ChatGPT does as good, if not a lot better job in some respects than I used to.
It's pretty good. I will say though, I can tell a chat GPT written email or letter. I can see it. I know it when I see it.
Yet you say that, Gene, yet I could see a form email or a form, that just somebody just takes what they did for 10 years and they just use the same thing too. So even with humans, it would do the same thing too. You look into the last 10 emails, you look 10 emails you got. So I can see it, but I could also see it with humans, you know.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's why one of the things that I teach with prompt engineering is make sure that if you're asking it to do create communications for you, don't lose your voice, and not only can you edit yourself, but you can also continually refine the GPT so that it does, like I said, when I create communications for myself, I never send it out as is, but the stuff that it gives me now is pretty darn good because, like I said, it knows I have a sense of humor. It knows the kind of sense of humor I have. It it knows the way I talk, you know. So, and I because I like to write conversationally rather than formally. That's not my style. But I think you always have to keep the human in the loop. That at the end of the day.
and what I also use it for, and you probably do as well, I'll ask it to proof something I've written.
Mm,
I wrote this, and it's so great. It'll come back. Oftentimes gives me positive feedback. Good job, Blaine, or something like
yeah,
that. But then if you like a more humorous approach, or if you'd like a more serious approach, or
yeah,
whatever, it gives me these 10 options, which is just incredible.
yeah. You can go down some rabbit holes there.
Well, that's point well taken too, because I found that too happening. You know, I'll
Yeah,
be working on something that takes me in 27 different directions.
right.
I guess you have to eventually.
You have to be judicious about it because it's supposed to be a time saver, but you can get really excited about all the different ways you can use it and continue. You could refine for
And I've
6 months.
been, Gene, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best bet?
Probably on my website, allsystemsgoconsulting.com,
Okay.
or on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn every single day, and you can look me up on All Systems Go Consulting on LinkedIn as well. Those are the best ways to get a hold of me.
And that's where I think I see you oftentimes on LinkedIn. So
Yeah.
certainly as a professional, a good way to get in touch with you. And Gene, if they want to get in touch with you, just what are some of the kinds of things you can help them with? Again, to kind of summarize.
Again, I can help with all things development and fundraising, individual giving programs, strategy, communications, ways to integrate AI into your operations, streamlining operations, and just making your systems work better.
And kind of cool what you just said, and I think it makes you a little bit different than other people, is you're not even saying at that point in time hire you. You're telling them up front you're going to be using certain things that you like to teach them to use. And I give you credit for that because that's kind of unusual. You know, you're not saying you'll do it all, you'll just help them use some of these things that are out there. Okay.
Yeah.
Gene, anyway, I'd like to thank you for being my guest on this edition of Blaine's World webcast. Did great the first time you've ever been on a webcast. I'm honored. I'd also like to thank my producer, Capri Tessetti. And hopefully one of these years, when I'm back in Bucks County or you should come on and visit us in North Carolina, we'll bump into
I would
each
love that.
other. It's been too long.
It has. I miss you, Blaine. Miss your sense of humor.
Well, likewise, Gene Holmes, and thank you very much. I'll, like I said, look forward to catching you sometime. Be
All
well.
right. Thanks for having me, Blaine.
Right.